What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. Sherdog.com is a website. I'm the host, Devin. I have a special guest with me, Dayne. We're going to talk about Hebos and Dern 2. We're going to talk about UFC 311. We're not going to talk about the actual fight. We're going to talk about the card. Some hot topics. But most importantly, Dayne, thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Always a pleasure to be on your show, man. How are you?
Good. I feel like I always blow the show intros because I've been sitting here rambling for like 20 minutes before I hit record. But here we are. Things keep popping up. Usually I record this show on Monday and it gets put out on Tuesdays. And, you know, the way I set that up, I kind of screwed myself because a lot of the fights get announced on Tuesdays. So I don't get to do a ton of breaking news. But there is kind of some breaking news. So we're going to talk about that. We'll get there at the middle segment of the show. I was like jonesing real bad for some UFC. I know Ryzen had their card and there was some other, smaller regional MMA, but how thirsty were you for this past weekend's UFC event?
I was pretty damn thirsty. I mean, no disrespect to Ryzen or any of the other smaller promotions, but there's a reason why the UFC is the premier MMA organization in the world. You know, it does have the best fighters overall. So even if it was kind of a middling card, a lot of times the middling fighter on the UFC equals some of the best fighters in the other organizations. And beyond that, we did get some spectacular action. I don't think, even the most ardent UFC haters would have to admit that what they delivered this past weekend was pretty awesome.
Yeah. We were all just like, this is a buffer to get us to UFC 311. Mm-hmm. This fight card sucks, blah, blah, blah. And like, we're not even going to talk about the main event or the co-main event. I know I said we're going to talk about Dern and Hebos, but we're going to talk about that card. But like, those two fights ended in finish, and we're not even going to talk about them. But, and like, that arm, we're not even going to talk about like the arm bar that Felipe Bunes got against a 6-foot flyweight that missed weight, and like the way he chased that thing down was super dope. It's just some really cool fights, and the UFC kind of like sometimes they knock it out of the park with these Apex
nights. No, the only thing that would have made it better is if it had been in front of a live audience.
Oh my God, there's so many moments of this card where like the audience would have been losing their shit. Yep. One moment we're going to talk about, and it's like an of the year moment already. And we're going to get into the first fight we're going to talk about. This fight was kind of buried down on the prelims. It was a guy that pulled up on short notice. We had Jacobe Smith knocking out Preston Parsons. He did it in less than a minute and a half in the first round. Jacobe Smith, the undefeated dude, took this fight on, was it like 2 weeks notice when Gustafsson pulled out?
It might have even been less. I can't 100%
10 days.
Remember, but yeah.
And Preston Parsons is, I think he's definitely better than his UFC record shows, but God, Jacobe Smith's an All-American wrestler. Do you know that?
Oh yeah, well,
I don't think
just barely.
You know what I mean? I don't think he told us that this past weekend. Dude, finally a wrestler that's like also down to bang, but yeah, he doesn't have any head movement, but he can work on that.
He's still relatively young in his career, man. That's the thing, and defense is usually the thing that comes last for fighters when they first come into the sport. But we were both on the Sherdog Slack, kind of talking about these fights and whatnot. And I commented, I expected Smith to win. I didn't expect him to quite do it in that fashion. Parsons is a tough SOB. I know he's been finished before, but that was also a fight that he took on short notice against Daniel Rodriguez, and that was several years ago. He's hung tough in there with hard hitters like Semmelsberger. Trevin Giles comes and goes, but he's been able to take some shots. But holy crap, Smith just trucked over him. It was impressive.
it was just like 4 exchanges in the pocket where they each threw more than 2 punches. And in the first one, like the second exchange, the first time he clipped Preston Parsons, he like clipped him. You could tell he kind of buzzed him. And then 2 exchanges later, he's just like dead. And I was like, man, Jacobe Smith is a wrestler that's willing to stand in the pocket and actually, throw a 3-punch combination. His head movement is definitely lacking, and someone else can make him pay for that. But typically, this is not even his thing. I think I was concerned for him with the short notice fight and him being just a big physical athlete. He didn't look that big in there against Preston Parsons. Actually, he's actually the smaller dude, which, may be good for him at this weight class, just because he can really like lean into his wrestling moving forward. Usually he's got like really good ground and pound and really good wrestling and really good control, but his ground and pound usually has a ton of power. We didn't even see any of that.
Yeah. No, it's one of those fights where it's going to excite a lot of people about him just because, that was an impressive knockout, especially the fact that he was, you talk about him buzzing Parsons, and, we like to critique the UFC commentators, but they nailed it when they said that Parsons typically is right up in his opponent's face, and Smith kind of backed him off a little bit. But we didn't learn very much about Smith because we knew he had power, hell of a good athlete, and he's done that to some of the guys on the regional scene. But, sometimes the biggest thing that happens when you get to the UFC is the fact that the guys you're facing don't go away. You hit them on the regional scene, they're done.
Yep.
And that's often the biggest difference in the UFC and those types of guys. But he was able to do that to Parsons. It was pretty damn impressive.
He's kind of, with his style and his abilities, his record is almost like a blessing and a curse.
True.
Because he's undefeated and he is a fighter that is good enough to boost their undefeated record. You could totally use that as a selling point. If you have some regional dude and you might not want to talk him up yet, but now he's in a situation where like he's probably good enough to fight with a lot of welterweights. Like, could he go out there and beat Chaos Williams? Yeah, maybe. He also might just get killed by him. But would you pick him to beat Alex Morono? I would. Would you pick him to beat, maybe Carlston Harris? I don't know. Like he could be that good. So his record could get, him having that could get him those higher fights. He could get to where he wants to go. Clearly, he said, Bilal, I've got an eye on you or whatever. That O on his record could buy him a bunch of fights if he keeps the O, but it could also get into some trouble because now people are going to say, prove it.
No, exactly. I often think it's sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a prospect's career is they get into the UFC and in their debut, they get a finish like that, because at that point the expectations are completely heightened and people want to put them on the fast track. And Smith he's only 3 years into his professional career. He still has a lot to learn. Like you said, no head movement, and unless he takes the time to work his way up the ladder slowly, he's going to get caught at some point. Yeah.
But I think for a guy like him with his abilities and his MMA wrestling, he's an All-American, and he's not the highest level American wrestler, and even in the UFC right now, but his MMA wrestling, he's just got the ground and pound. He's got the good control. So I could totally see him doing big things in the future. Do you have a fight for him next? Do you think it should just be like anybody? Should he try to fight like an OG UFC vet? I think he should fight Jake Matthews to see what happens. Fuck it.
I think Matthews is booked right now. Let's see here.
He's just the first name that comes to mind for me. I'm like, Jake Matthews. He's a tenured dude that's, good but not great.
That makes sense to me. Okay, so I put somebody down Saturday night. And actually who I have for it is Chidi Njokuani, somebody that could snipe him, take advantage of his lack of head movement, but yeah.
also willing to get absolutely fucked in the wrestling. That's I love it. You know, and that's that's the tough thing about being 10-0. Your second fight in the UFC could be against Jake Matthews or Chidi and Jaquani. And I might favor him in those fights maybe, but either one of those dudes could absolutely just lamp him, make him really pay for his lack of head movement, or, Jake Matthews doesn't die in the first round, and then how does the second and third look? We don't know. But I'm excited for him. Not often will I go and dig up someone from, the preliminary undercard and highlight them on the show. And I do think Jacobe Smith, probably, man,
he's somebody to watch. He is.
Yeah. And the way with his 10-0 record, like at some point in his UFC career, someone's going to probably make a lot of money off of him if he does drop, because I can imagine him. He's probably going to be a favorite in whoever he fights next. There's no,
most likely.
There's just no way. Especially, we're going to talk about betting odds, but man, MMA odds have just gotten crazy as of lately. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Jacobe Smith would get matched against like some Jake Matthews and be like a minus 350 or like something weird, and we'd all be like, that doesn't make sense. Moving on to a of the year moment. We had Abdulrazak Alhassan taking on Almeida. Almeida wins by first round knockout. Cesar Almeida was on his way to getting finished. He got clubbed with the straight shot down the pike from Alhassan. Alhassan got on top, started landing some ground and pound. Sorry, I'm trying to seriously speak my way through this fight. He's landing some violent ground and pounds. Cesar Almeida manages to get back up to his feet. And they just start, Alhassan just starts swinging hammers at him, and Cesar Almeida hits him with just one of the cleanest check left hooks, just counter punches him right in the middle of a big exchange. And that Alex Pereira knockout on the regional scene where the guy's kind of rushing forward and he just steps back, boom, and throws that left hook, and the dude just falls face forward. This was like the exact opposite of that. Abdulrazak Alhassan got clipped. It was one fucking shot. He hit the ground, and then his like shoulder area and upper back hit the ground before the rest of his body did, and it caused him to whiplash. And the back of his head just boing right off the freaking canvas. Sorry, I'm talking so long. Was that the most violent knockout of this year so far? And will it be? Dude,
we don't have a lot to compare it to, so yeah, it easily was.
Fuck.
Yeah. No, he deaded Alhassan, dude. Like,
bruh,
9 times, hell, more than 9 times out of 10, you see a knockout like that where they go cold and they'll take the commercial break and they'll come back and you see the guy sitting on a stool and he's like, yeah, I'm good, man. Nice shot. Yeah. What happened to get, Alhassan was still out, dude. He had no clue where he was.
I made a joke in the Sherdog Slack, and I was hoping you saw it, but I don't know if you did or not. But my joke was, good thing they're not 20 minutes away from the hospital.
I saw that one. I did see that. Yeah, because I can't remember her name.
Nixing, I think is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I
was going to say the cute Chinese girl from the road to the UFC, and yeah,
in Macau, where she. Okay, so in the past like fucking 3 months, I've seen the two like. I've been watching combat sports since the year 2004. And in the past like 3 months, I've seen more knockout. Like those two knockouts, how long they were sleeping so long? I can't recall anyone being unconscious that long. Like I think those, and it's happened in like the last 3 months. Can you recall any time that you've seen someone out longer than Alhassan besides the Shi Ming fight? Like, dude, it's been like 3 months, and I'm like, okay, we're getting really close, or something bad happening here.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, I'm with you that there's been an exceeding amount of violent knockouts over the last little bit, but if I can remember somebody being out for that long a time in such a cluster, I think you're probably right. I mean, it's possible, like back in the Wild West days of the UFC, like when Tank Abbott knocked the crap out of John Matua or something like that, and then they moved the cameras away, so we have no clue what's happening with Matua.
Sure.
It's possible something like that might have, but we don't know for sure. So yeah.
It was just like, and obviously, recency bias. They both happened, but I immediately thought about that head kick, and I'm just like, the time that Al Hassan was out for. It gets to the point where it's like, okay, they go, like you said, they go to commercial break, they come back, and then you're like, no, he's not off the ground yet.
And then they're trying to put him on the stool, but he's struggling to even sit up, man. I almost felt like keep him laying down for a little bit longer. But
okay, I'm not a fucking medical professional either, but I've seen a lot of dudes get knocked out. The UFC has a certain allotted time for the broadcast. They have enough time for you to just let Al Hassan recover. Like, why are we putting dudes on stools? What's the difference between him sitting on the ground with his back against the cage and sitting on a stool where he can try to stand up and fall? Let people regain their why is this a thing?
Your guess is as good as mine.
After Bryce Mitchell got knocked, I think now that's one where Bryce Mitchell was out for a real long time against Josh Emmett too.
Yeah,
fuck, he really was. But they like tried to bring him back up to his, and I'm like, if you're picking him up, you should be putting him in a wheelchair after.
Yeah, no, something like that where he can actually kind of fall back. I mean, like you said, that I thought that was the smartest thing to do is just lean him up against the cage, let him lean back. If he can't even do that, okay, lay him down. I don't know. I just
let him. Don't just, if you're gonna lean him up against the cage, don't do it where the cage door is open. Like, don't do it on that.
They've done that before.
Yeah. And if he wasn't, and he was on it, Michael Chandler was on a stool. Actually, no, he was trying to sit down in a stool, but he was, at stool height. If he was sitting on the ground, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah, this fight was just an all-out brawl, and it was like a one-sided ass whipping until watching this fight. What was going through my brain was, I was in my mind, I'm like, haha, this is kind of funny because this is exactly how Cesar Almeida would lose this fight. I actually thought Al Hassan was going to end it with the ground and pound. I'm sure you probably did too. But then once it became a brawl, immediately like a light switch, I'm like, Al Hassan's going to die here. And seconds later, he's just dead.
Yeah, no. When he was unable to finish him off with the ground and pound, and he's just swinging wildly, I'm like, okay, well, one of two things is going to happen. He's either going to get clipped or he's going to tire himself out. Because that's what happens with Al Hassan. He's got about a round's worth of fight in him, and then from there it's largely just survival mode. But yeah, that was brutal. Because the thing is, when you're a wide swinger the way that Al Hassan is, I mean, yes, if he hits you 9 times out of 10, you're dancing with the Grim Reaper for a little bit. But yeah, Almeida's he's a clean enough striker that he's going to be the type to make him pay the price, and that's 100% what happened there.
He just like got to his feet, put his back against the cage, rolled with the high guard, ate some of those shots, literally stepped out, cut the angle, bink through the left hook, and like
pinpoint on the chin too, man. Couldn't have been landed any better.
All he did was take a small angle, and then it was just like anything that Al Hassan was throwing in one direction, Cesar Almeida was just 10 inches to Al Hassan's right, and then that left hook literally just fucking flattened him. That's one of the, it kind of, just like the whiplash kind of reminded me of like the Johnny Walker Jamahal Hill knockout, not as like,
not like, as cartoonish, but yeah.
You ever been like at a like at a hockey game or like any sort of sports game where they're like doing the wave in the crowd.
Oh yeah,
that's what Johnny Walker. We're gonna talk about that, and I watched that shit today, and like he literally did like the like, the fucking...
Keep in mind, man, Walker's not fighting this weekend anymore. But yeah,
no, I watched that fight for the Jamahal Hill prep that I.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Yeah, but, yeah.
I also read a lot of Jamahal Hill Twitter. What's next for Cesar Almeida? I kind of personally, man, like, yeah, he absolutely deaded Al Hassan, but I am just not like, I don't know. Between this fight and the way he looked up until the knockout and like the Iho Portieria fight, even the Kopylov fight. Kopylov is really good, and we're going to talk about him, but I don't know. What's next for Cesar Almeida? I'm just, I don't know.
So I'm with you. I know that a lot of people want to rush him because he's got the win over Pereira in kickboxing. So people want to rush him up the ladder, but I'm with you. I'm still not sold. I heard Keith and Ben talking about the likes of maybe Roman Dolidze or something like that, and I think that's not quite yet. I think Abus Magomedov could be a fun fight. Abus can wrestle a bit, provide that type of challenge, but I think for the most part, Abus would stand and trade with him.
The UFC is going to probably be like picking up the Jack Hermanson or calling the Jack Hermanson phone.
Probably. Like I said, that's what I think they're going to do, but I'm not in favor of that myself.
If you want to see Cesar Almeida move forward, then he probably shouldn't fight Dolidze, especially like Jack Hermanson, in my opinion, even though I know Dolidze beat Hermanson. Like, if you go back and watch that fight, like, he was getting absolutely whooped until he hit him with that weird ground and pound, calf slicing ground and pound thing. I don't even know what it's
weirdest things ever. Yeah, no, dude, that was incredible.
Yeah, Sherdog.com. If you go there, I'm sure Jay Petrie was able to get the exact name of that finish. Anyway, yeah. I just, for Cesar Almeida, I think he should just like fight Michel Pereira, dude. Fuck it, right?
Oh, well, I'll tell you who I have for Pereira, because I actually got somebody that I think would be even funner. But yeah, I get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, or Hobocop is fighting. So is that who's Hobocop fighting? I know he's matched up with someone that's important.
Was it? No, it wasn't Pfeiffer.
No,
it's not Pereira. Pereira's still not scheduled.
No,
dude, after his beating with after his beating at the hands of Fluffy, man, no, he's still not scheduled.
Dude, that was actually that beating was bad. I'm pulling it up. This is bad for air, but I'm finding it. It's Jared Cannonier.
That's right.
So Cesar Almeida could also fight the loser of that fight.
Yeah.
Or he could fight like Christian Leroy Duncan. Could go in either
Duncan's
one.
Coming off a loss. Yeah, Duncan's coming off a loss, and he's scheduled as well. He's going to be fighting in London.
Who's he fighting in London? Let's see. Andre Pulayev. Cool. Cesar Almeida. Yeah. Did he get 50 G's for this? I believe he did get 50 G's for this. There's nobody did.
Yes.
Like, there's just
no. There should have been more money going around with bonuses from that event, but yeah, he was one of the few who did.
Working in corporate America, certain departments get certain budgets and blah 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 blah, and the UFC is probably tight with their budget starting off in January. They're putting off these bomb ass cards, and they're keeping their wallet close tight. They're we might not get those big bonuses until later in the year. Yeah, this card definitely had a ton of people that deserved a hell of a lot of money.
Dude, they have at least 3 moments they could easily put on Baba O'Reilly reels. Easily. At least
1,000%. moving on to the final fight we're going to talk about from this past weekend. We have Roman Kopylov defeating Chris Curtis at literally, I think it was at the 4-minute 58. Was it 4-minute
59?
59?
59.
Mm-hmm. A la the Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, definitely not as stiff as Gaethje was, but a final second head kick knockout, I guess, of Chris Curtis in a really, really close fight that, I think some of the people in the Sherdog Slack, I wasn't scoring it live. I won't say names, but I think there was a couple people in there that had the first 2 rounds scored for Curtis.
Yep.
And in the moment, I was really fired up. You and I were talking about it. I'm like, this is a robbery, but not a robbery on the scorecards. Like Mark Smith robbed Curtis's ability to go to the scorecards. And after getting head kicked and surviving, he'd have probably lost on the cards. But someone like Chris Curtis deserves to go to the cards in that situation, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Mark Smith didn't know what the scorecards read. So, yeah, no. I'm with you. He deserved that opportunity.
It's just a bad fucking stoppage.
Yeah.
Why would, and we're not going to talk about it, unfortunately, but Renato Moicano is taking on Beneil Dariush this weekend in a really good fucking fight. But why was Renato Moicano allowed to go through the Jalen Turner fight in a real and he was more done than Chris Curtis, times 2. That was the most hurt I've seen Chris Curtis in a fight, by the way. Like in the UFC, he's been knocked out. He's been knocked out in the PFL, but like in the UFC,
hold on. There, I think there's a little bit of a caveat there. I will undoubtedly say that's the most hurt that he's been based off of a legal strike.
Yeah, the Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah, when he got headbutted there, and then he got headbutted by Imavov as well. So
yeah, the Gastelum one was real bad too.
Yes.
But like that he got knocked out in the PFL, but like that's the most hurt I've seen him like in the UFC, and he's gone to war with a lot of big punchers and other real good fighters.
Well, beyond that too, though, like to give Curtis even further credit, because yes, he absolutely was hurt, but even after the head kick, it was kind of a stumble down. Like he was trying to remain standing, and you just kind of see him slowly go down. It was not an instant timber moment, So that's
totally.
I look at that, yeah, and so I look at that and I think, no, he's still there. He's got his wits about him. He was not completely out, because he was trying to get back up as soon as he hit the ground, pretty much.
He was probably hurt and out of it a bit, but like you said, he didn't. Boom! He fell and immediately was on one knee and one hand. He still had a foot planted to the ground, and he was still recovering and got up. And he got up, and he wasn't like whoa, doing one of those like running half sideways across the cage after. No, like he was like, what the hell? He's the exact opposite of the Robbie Lawler Ben Askren fight, where Robbie was like, "Why'd you do that, Herb? My bad, man. It's all good." It definitely was not like that. Of course, that's how Chris. He's an emotional dude. Doesn't fight with a ton of emotion, but you could tell he definitely carries that through the fight. This part of the other thing that annoyed me as a I have to call myself a fan. Of course I am. As a fan watching this, Kopylov, the first round was really close. And I still think I think Chris Curtis won the second round, but that was also really close. But there was one moment where he rips Kopylov to the body, and Kopylov takes his deep breath, takes 2 steps to the back of the cage, lets his back bounce off the cage, resets, and then in the very next exchange, throws a punch to the balls that people didn't like. I heard a recap this weekend, it got deflected. I'm like, no, that was just a straight shot to the balls. And I won't ever get mad at someone playing the game, but you hit someone in the balls, you're losing the round, and it's starting to look bad enough to the point where I'm like, I don't know if Kopylov makes it through this fight. I put that into the Sherdog Slack because he started taking the back foot. He started to flag real bad. He kicks him in the balls. And then literally 15 seconds later,
eye poke,
and then goes on to like up his volume and then like gets his last wave after getting rest. So you parlay that with the fucking finish, and it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. You should tell everyone about the article you wrote.
Yeah. You know, we kind of already
touched the name of it.
But, it's usually the editors who give it the title. And I know that Ben did something different from what I did. Let me look it up really quick. There we go. Opinion: the unluckiest man in the UFC. But yes, that 100% describes Curtis, because at this point in his last 5 fights, he's got a record of 1-3 and 1 no contest. The thing is in all but one of those fights, Lady Luck has shown down upon him. And if Lady Luck had at least been neutral, I think that we're talking about Chris Curtis having a 4-1 record in the last 5 fights. We mentioned Gastelum, where he got that illegal headbutt, and the problem with that one is, yes, even if you take out the headbutt from there, because you're not supposed to count that. What do you do about the fights that Gastelum scores after Curtis eats the headbutt? You can't discount those, which, yes, and that's what really sucked about that.
Yeah,
because it's like, well, those shots were legal, and the referee didn't stop the action when he should have. So in that case, most people scored the second round for Gastelum, even with the headbutt, and that one. So
it's hard.
Curtis loses on that one.
Yeah,
I admitted he probably would have lost to Imavov, but at the same time, that was the 1 no contest. But in that one, Curtis,
the Brendan Allen fight, man, the second Brendan Allen fight was super close up until the
last 15-20 seconds when his hamstring just gives out. And
yeah,
and I would give credit to Allen on that one if Allen was like, kick him in there, and all of a sudden you see him go down, but he wasn't
like
attacking him on the head thing. Yeah. It just something popped out on him. So yeah, there was that one, but even the Imavov fight, because with Imavov, Curtis can dead you with 1 shot. So to take that opportunity away from him, I said, look, if Lady Luck is shining up on him instead of down, he could have been 5-0, because I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility that he deads Imavov with 1 punch.
Yeah,
so it's very plausible Curtis could have been 5-0 in that time.
And you feel for the guy, and his post this weekend was basically something along the lines of, there's not many I'm summarizing this, but there's not many jobs on the planet or whatever where you can make $200,000 in a night and still feel really defeated and not know what you're going to do next. I think he posted that before he knew he got the fight of the night bonus. So turn that 200 into 250, Chris Curtis. If Chris Curtis, if you listen to Check the Kick, I bet Roman Kopylov only gets paid half as much as you do, maybe even less than that. So Roman Kopylov's probably fighting for like 80,000 or something. So you're the winner, Chris Curtis. Yeah, I feel bad for the dude. It's tough. And this past card, really quick to just talk about unlucky dudes. Like, this card was riddled with unlucky, Carlston Harris, kind of a bad stoppage as well. Ihor Portieria, like, can't go through a fight. Whatever he did to Shogun has just got him this like Brazilian karma that he's paid for tenfold already. Like, what the fuck?
No, a lot of truth to that. No, and I mean, there's a lot that we could touch on. Because Tulio, I'm not going to say he deaded him, but he did a number on him. You kind of touched on that slick armbar by Bunez over Jose Johnson. Just a hell of a scramble fest between the two of them, and then Bunez catches Johnson's arm, and Johnson did a hell of a job trying to escape, but Bunez did not let go. Soriano blasting through Medic. That dude, we basically forgot about that one.
That was incredible. If we had more time allotted, I would break down that whole fight, because Puna looked awesome. Like, dude,
Rodriguez is still the prospect killer. Ponzinibbio had a hell of a comeback. And I'll give kudos to Dern. I wrote an article leading up to it, saying that it's do or die. Well, okay, she kind of did, because Hebus fought stupidly. I don't know why Hebus thought, I'll just keep going into the guard with her. That was dumb as hell. Dern took what was given to her, if that makes sense. So I'm not quite ready to say that she did what was given to her. I'm still not convinced that she's a contender, but she did what she needed to do and took what was given to her.
I think both of those two women are not, they're not known for their fight IQ. And I think that if you had them fight 10 times, each outcome would be different, and it would be split 5-5. And all 5 wins on either side would be by something different. Like if they fight again, Hebus could just knock her out. And then, maybe Mackenzie Dern gets a rear naked choke, and then Hebus hits her with the spinning wheel kick, and whatever. Like they're both of them are just, they're just such formless and baseless. Like they're just like, we do stuff a lot and take a lot of risks. That's how they fight. It was an interesting fight all around. All around a really cool card.
Great
real
card.
Quick before we finish, who do you have for Kopylov next? What do you think this guy should do?
Okay, so I'll give you both Kopylov and Curtis, because I kind of teased a little bit earlier with regards to I had Michel Pereira for somebody, and I think Pereira and Curtis would be a hell of a fun fight. You got the guy who's a little bit more buttoned down with his striking approach, and then Pereira being a crazy ass. That would be a fun fight, I think. But for Kopylov, I actually have Jack Hermanson.
I like it. I want to see him. I want to see him fight Paulo Costa.
That'd be acceptable as well. Yeah, no, that'd be a lot of fun.
I think he deserves something like that. He also may just get stuck fighting the winner of like Renier de Ridder and Kevin Holland. And I'd probably pick him to crush either one of those dudes, but I could totally, middleweight's
weird. Middleweight has always been weird.
It's so weird, and like I love that Dricus is the middleweight champion too. It's just so funny.
That's the most middleweight thing.
And he's fighting Sean Strickland in a rematch real soon, and those dudes both like schooled Izzy. It's just so funny. Like it's so funny. And Dricus didn't really school him, but like finished him. Like just, middleweight's so freaking weird and funny. That's the card on the weekend. We are gonna move on to the middle segment of the show. What's hot? I don't do this segment as much as I should, so I apologize to you guys if you want more current topics, but there also hasn't been any crazy stuff happening. Moving on to the middle segment of the show, what's hot? We are going to talk about kind of one hot topic that may bleed into a second hot topic that was announced today. But as of, what day is it today? The 13th. Let me just make sure. January 13th of 2025, Bellator is no more. It will now be considered the PFL Championship Series. I'm sorry to chuckle after that, but I kind of, it's gone. What do you think about this? What does this mean for us as fans, and what does it mean for the viewers as fans that Bellator is gone? We knew it's gone, but now it's it's buried. It's been laid to rest.
Well, okay. If this was a surprise to any MMA fan, you haven't paid attention to MMA history. This is what always happens anytime a rival buys up another promotion. UFC bought Pride. They initially said, "Oh yeah, we're going to run them both simultaneously." Pride never ran another event. They bought Strike Force. Yep, and they did run the promotion for we'll say a year and a half or so, but they were siphoning off all the best talent over to the UFC to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, we know it's going to be dead. Same thing was going to happen here with PFL and Bellator.
WEC,
especially
man.
Given, yeah, exactly. That's another perfect example. But yeah, Yeah, Don Davis doesn't have any love for MMA either. So it's not like he cared whether or not Bellator hung around.
No.
To him, it's just a business entity, which I get and I understand. But one of the reasons why the UFC has been able to thrive is, as much as it's easy to rip on Dana White, he actually does have a love for the sport. He enjoys it. Don Davis doesn't.
Totally. And here's the difference between Dana White and Don Davis when it comes to being a fan of not just MMA, but combat sports in general. People talk shit about Dana White getting caught like at a live UFC event watching boxing on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, guess what, guys? When there's an MMA event on and there's rumblings that Bud Crawford and Canelo just got announced. If there's an MMA event on that same time, I'm going to be dual screening both too. So, because we are real fans. Dana is a real fan. Don Davis ain't doing that shit.
No.
This is kind of the end of an era in a way, because Bellator was kind of the final promotion where a lot of these old heads went. Like Fedor had his final fights there. And now it's gone for good. It's kind of on the spot. What's your favorite Bellator moment? You can give me 2 or 3, some really memorable stuff. I mean, I've got a couple off the top.
My favorite, I have to say this one is my favorite because I was there live. But when Emmanuel Newton upset King Mo with that spinning back fist.
Sure.
When you're live at something like that, it's hard not to have that stand out and be your favorite moment. And as much as I would love to go to more live events, I don't make a shit ton of money by any means, so it's kind of hard to go to them frequently. But 100%, that was it for me.
Dude, there was just some really dope fights that happened, like
Eddie Alvarez and Chandler. Yeah. Both of them. I mean, number one in particular, but yeah.
Just, like even like the Henry Corrales and Aaron Pico first fight, like all
yeah.
Just so much. Paul Daly had so many legends went there, and to kind of finish their careers. Like it just about all the Cyborg fights, the Douglas Lima fights, like there's so many, like
Patty Curran and Daniel Strauss. That was a fantastic fight.
Yeah, man. The fucking Michael Page knockout.
Mm-hmm.
Or Douglas Lima.
Dude.
Like
everybody. Oh god, what's the guy who got the reverse triangle on Masvidal? What was his? Imada, Toby Imada.
Yeah. Dude, Joe Schilling versus Melvin Manhoof.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that one.
Even like fucking Yoel Romero killed like he ended his like so many legends. I hate to use this term, went there to die, but like they went there to
true. It's true.
But it wasn't death. It was more of like I'm a major Lord of the Rings fan. When the elves go to the Undying Lands, they're not going there to die, they're going there to finish off. But
no, dude, you're not wrong. I mean, Benson Henderson finished things off there. Frank Mir. Hell, I don't know how many people would
Fedor.
I don't know how many people would call Josh Koscheck a legend, but he went there to die. Same with Roy Nelson. There's a lot of guys that were big names at one point in the UFC that just died a quiet death there.
So and like even like OG legends again, Fedor, Melvin Manhoef, like super OG, like tons of dudes went there. And they did bring some good fighters over to the PFL. I really hope PFL utilizes what they've got right now, because they have the opportunity and for for the place that PFL is in right now, there's still time to rewrite the ship.
Well, but I'm very curious to see what they do with the new tournament format that they're proclaiming they're going to do. That didn't works so well for Bellator, because if we all know that's how Bellator started. Championships are championship fights are earned, not given. So they had the tournament format. PFL is going to have to do some adjusting to what Bellator was doing. I think it's a format that can work, but it's a very delicate balance.
I was kind of going through some social media comments today, and someone was like, well, Bellator's done. What can PFL do to be different? And my, opinion on that matter is people are like, well, they're already doing something different because it's the season format. I'm like, this season is just a poorly managed Grand Prix, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, what I mean by doing something different is like, they've got a bunch of these real famous boxers on retainer.
Mm-hmm.
Like Amanda Serrano was signed with them. She has 3 MMA fights, 3 pro fights, like actual pro MMA bouts. Like, do a mixed rules bout with her against like some absolute MMA scrub, kind of like the one that they had Clarissa Shields fight, one of those gals. Not here to trash, but give her a layup fight in a mixed rules bout, like with one did with Demetrius Johnson, but like boxing, 1 round boxing, 1 round MMA. Let us start with MMA, but like do that shit in 4-ounce gloves. Like something, like do something different. This is a big opportunity for them to kind of, start the year off right and do cool stuff. That stuff's never going to happen, man. I'm literally like,
you're wish casting, but
oh yeah,
that's okay.
I'm talking fight circus shit that's just never going to happen. When you've got the guy that's in charge of things posting on LinkedIn, stuff like that is not going to happen. There's just too much of a disconnect on what we would want to see. Who do you? I mean, we see Pitbull is like, I'm ready to leave the PFL, especially now that Bellator is gone. Do you think?
Too.
Yeah. Do you think that the Bellator name dissolving kind of benefits PFL in the way they can manage things moving forward now that they don't have to carry that name anymore?
Probably not. And I say that because they're going to have to run more events than what they have been running. And I don't think that they're going to be doing that. And
they couldn't meet they were contractually obligated to carry Bellator for like a year. So I think that's what ended. But they were also, they also had other cards set up. Like, I don't even, you may know, but I think it was like 3 or 4 cards that fell apart that were supposed to come together this year that just didn't come to fruition. And we're not talking bad on PFL. I'm just giving you, that's just a fact. Stuff was promised and it didn't happen. Not even promised, like pen to paper, contractual agreements, and shit fell through.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to crap on them, because in order to make it in something like that and to make it big, you have to be dreaming big. And so I think they got a little bit too big for their britches with some of that stuff, with the attempts to add expansion. As much as I hate the UFC running so many events at the Apex, the PFL would benefit from, just something small and simple like that, where because they've got the TV deal with ESPN, so they've got the national audience that's just as accessible as the UFC. If they could run regular events like that where they're not putting out a lot of cost, they might be able to make it. But at the same time, it would be at the sacrifice of a live audience. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
I have an idea. I think I know what they should do. I think that they should be putting on a fight card every 2 weeks. It should be on like a Wednesday or Thursday night evening time, and it should only be like a 6-fight card. And then maybe like once, do a quarterly pay-per-view event, and then that happens like on Friday night, and it's a big Friday night blowout. You're not fucking, and those pay-per-view events can be like an 8-fight card, so throw 2 more fights on there, not these crazy long 14 fight with all these. No. Give us like what the contender, like a contender series size card once every other week. do it on a Wednesday, and then do a pay-per-view event, a quarterly pay-per-view once every 4 months on a Friday night. Sell it to us for like, do the Turkey Al Sheik $25, $40, you know, do it a little bit cheaper, throw 8 fights on there, and then maybe a Legends fight, because they've got enough legends on there to throw, like, they've got enough legends on their roster where, like, they've got a co-main event. If there's 52 weeks in a year and they do 25 events, they've got enough OGs to, you know, Pitbull could co-main or main event like freaking 5 cards for them this year. But that's the thing, is they like, this is what they need to do to make these dudes stay. Like, they need to give these dudes fights. They need to find the capital to freaking pay for them. And I think that could be a potential issue for them.
Yes, at this point, very much so. Kind of what we were touching on earlier. Do you think we see Holly Holm do a PFL event?
That was going to be my next thing, where, you know, it's Holly Holm just announced, or it's on social media. It didn't come from her yet, but supposedly they've parted ways. I guess maybe it did come from her, but the UFC and Holly Holm have parted ways. So if this was 1 year ago, Holly Holm would be like lacing up her running shoes to run over to Bellator PFL and try to pick another rematch with Cyborg or Larissa Pacheco for a big old fat bag of money. I don't know, man. I don't know if anyone. She's probably going to GFL.
I think that's probably where she's going. PFL does not look like an attractive option for free agents at this point. So
you're going to get signed and you're going to get one fight. Because they can only afford to pay her once. And if you're Holly Holm and you get one fight in 2025 that you want to win, it's probably not against Cyborg or Larissa Pacheco either.
Nope. That fight with Kayla Harrison really changed everybody's outlook on Holm at this point.
I just got a brilliant idea. I think if Holly Holm, she could totally get to this weight class too, and it could totally happen. Again, I'm hoping, I'm dreaming here, but imagine her and Clarissa Shields in a mixed rules bout, 1 round MMA, 1 round boxing. They both have boxing and MMA. They both are probably close. Clarissa Shields probably a little bit bigger, but not by much. Maybe she can. I don't fucking know. You know what? I don't know,
I
man.
Get it. I know. It's hard to say.
Like, what the hell? What is she gonna do, man? Like,
honestly, I think she's gonna be in the GFL, and she'll probably fight Julia Budd next.
She had 2 fights left on her contract, and we were just talking about people getting paid $250,000. Dude, Holly Holm was probably making that Andrei Arlovski money, dude. She was loved by the UFC. She was a champion. Her contract had just got renewed when she turned like 40, whatever.
That's
like
true.
She's not fighting for chump change, dude. She's probably fighting for $200,000 to $300,000 a fight. I don't even know who's going to match that. There must have been something. There must have been something that, I don't know. Like, I just financially, I don't know if her parting ways with the UFC with her age and the amount of money that she could have, the UFC would have totally gave her those last 2 fights too. And we would have totally seen her in the Apex 2 more times this year as the main event. Dude, it's a blessing in disguise.
They gave the fights to Andrei Arlovski when he was basically done. You know, they paid him those 6 figures.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So I don't think it's an issue of whether or not they would have. I don't want to speculate because you know Holmes typically a pretty private person with regards to that stuff. This came out of the blue. You know, she hasn't been bitching on social media or anything like that. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm more inclined to believe that she asked for it. I don't know why, but that's my.
There's just something else that's apparently, in my opinion, that means more than money.
Yeah.
Had to happen because there's no way she's like, what, like 43, I think, or something.
Well, something like that. But the thing is, she still has name value, and the UFC could still build up opponents by by having them beat her, so
her next fight 1000% could have been against Irene Aldana or someone of that stature in 4 months at the Apex, right? The weekend after a pay-per-view as the main event. Like 1000. So it's got to be something that she's walking away from. Hopefully she's on to greener pastures. Hopefully she's able to make money and do something cool. Maybe she wanted to box again. Maybe she got a good opportunity to do something in the PFL with Amanda Serrano or Clarissa Shields. That would be what I would like to see most, but I think that's the least likely.
Yeah.
That wraps up the middle segment of the show. We're going to move on to UFC 311 in with the new. God, this is honestly, dude, in 10 months, we could be having a conversation of like, this could be the 2025 UFC 300. Like, this card is real good. Like, there's no smoke break. I'll take a smoke break during the Cedricus Dumas fight, but that's like the smoke break. This card's great. Before the card, before all this happens, like, what grade do you give this whole card, dude? Just on paper.
On paper? Oh, God. It's either an A or an A minus. I mean,
it's so good. It's fucking good,
yeah.
man. Like, this is one where, you and I live in a similar time zone. I'm on the West, your Mountain Time. And East Coasters, I grew up in South Florida, and I watched a F ton of MMA growing up on East Coast time. Now I live on the West Coast, and the time is a lot of times, like, I'm a big time outdoorsman, and a lot of times I'll go outside and go like fishing for the first half of the day, and then I'll get home and I'll be listening to the first fight or two, like in my headphones as I'm hiking back up to my car to drive home, and I'll get home, take off my boots, get changed, and then sit down and watch. Miss the first 2 or 3 fights. I'll catch them by audio. This card, I won't be doing that. My ass will be planted in front of my couch. The whole card is just, the whole card's really good, man. Even like Aileen Perez versus Carol Hosa, like that. Aileen Perez, like, that should be a great fight. We're only going to talk about 3 fights.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wish I could talk about all of them, but we'd be here for another 4 freaking hours. And I got dinner to eat. I'm sure you do too, man. First fight we're going to talk about, honestly, low key, like, I might be the most hyped about this fight, even over the co-main and the main event, the 2 title fights. We have Jiri Prochazka taking on Jamahal Hill. Odds on this fight, to pick them, dead even odds. Does that surprise you at all?
For this fight? No.
This is a really weird fight, man. We got Jiri Prochazka coming off of yeah, dude. That's the only way to describe Jiri in the UFC. Just like, he's such a funny, interesting, you look at him and almost chuckle. Like, he's just such a weird, like, his last 4 fights, like the fucking Glover Teixeira fight, not enough people talk about that fight. But if you got 25 minutes to spare and you want to see like the most interesting, exciting thing that takes 25, or it didn't go all 25 minutes, 24 minutes or 23 and change.
There was less than 30 seconds to go. So yeah.
What the I watched that fight pack this weekend. Dude. How the there was a lot of moments where Glover beat the fucking shit out of Jiri Prochazka. Like, on the feet, on the ground, all over the place. And then I also watched the Glover Teixeira fight with Jamahal Hill. And that was not.
That was a shit kicking.
That was a shit kicking. I do have one thing to say to you before we really dive deep into this fight is you got dominated and I got caught. I don't know if you heard Jamahal Hill
Oh,
sorry.
uh,
You got dominated. I got caught. There's a difference. Dude.
that is not true, but
the Dominic Reyes fight with Jiri was absolutely incredible. The Volkan Oezdemir fight, also absolutely incredible. Jamahal Hill, he's a guy that, you know, we did the award show, had you and Ben on. We had a great time. That was fun. One thing that I missed, and I missed this. We should have had a segment for the most entertaining fighter of 2024. I know it's January 13th of 2025, but I'm going to give Jamahal Hill the most entertaining fighter of 2024. I was reading you some Twitter posts from him. If you're a listener, pause this, just, you know, have a Twitter, just type in Jamahal Hill, go to his account, spend 10 minutes reading his Twitter. It's hysterical. I screenshot some tweets. I may or may not read them. But Jamahal Hill's a dude, you know, his last fight, he got one-shotted by Alex Pereira. I don't think his whole thing of, I fouled you and you took advantage of me fouling you to take the angle and knock. I don't think that holds no water to me. Like, I've watched it back 100 times. What about you?
No, just those words, that doesn't make any sense. I fouled you, and then you took advantage of it. Stop and listen to what you're saying. You're the one who violated the rules, and then you took advantage of it. No, that's not how it works. And it's not like it caught you by surprise. You know, the referee looked at both of you. You know,
he gave him the thumbs up. He threw the first punch.
Well, okay, if we're being honest, Jamal's always giving the thumbs up, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Dude, Jamahal Hill's such a funny dude. Another thing that's not talked about enough is we all talk shit about Paddy Pimblett. Well, I'm grouping you into we all, but I'll say I could be wrongfully doing this. We all talk shit
about Paddy Pimblett. That's true.
But it's not just him. It's his in and out fight shape in between camps. Jamahal Hill's on that same dude. They're eating at I was gonna say they're on the same bus. They're eating at the same food truck. Those dudes must.
I'm not gonna say much. I eat at that same damn food truck, so you know my fat ass. But anyway,
but last time I checked, you were not the UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. But like Jamahal Hill's ability to be in and out of camp and go from like looking like a honey ham to just not in between, like it's something that's it's remarkable. They're both good and bad in their own ways, and that's kind of defines light heavyweight. Both of these dudes were champions at light heavyweight, and at one moment they were, you know, potentially fighting each other for that belt. They you know, they both fought the same dude. One of them was on short notice, and I don't know how it was after Jamahal Hill fought Glover Teixeira after the Jiri fight. So the whole thing was weird. Their games are just so light heavyweight too. Like Jamahal Hill, he's really good on the front foot. He's got really good body kicks, really good head kicks. He will throw the same side kick over and over again. Like he will spam body kicks on the same side and then boom, throw one up high. He's got really good dexterity. He's a much better athlete than he presents to be. Like if you just look at him, you know, especially outside of camp, you'd like that. That guy's not a world-class athlete. No, he totally is. Good boxing, kind of throws a lot of wide shots, but he's not technically sound, but he's proficient. Like it's one of those things where he's doing the wrong thing, but it's working, and it's working because he does the wrong thing, but he makes the wrong thing work. Really fucking similar to Jiri Prochazka, where he's you know, a Muay Thai coach or a boxing coach be like, would not allow those techniques in his gym, but he does. Jamahal Hill's able to, you know, get proper angles, like the way he finished off OSP. He hit him with a barrage of shots, and he had really good angles and shot selections in those moments. But other moments, like off the back foot, he didn't look too great. Sometimes he gets taken down by people, but then against Glover, his takedown defense was really good. Against Thiago Santos, he was able to take him down. Sometimes he has pretty good wrestling. Jiri Prochazka, he's a dude that's, if you think Jamahal Hill's crazy on Twitter, Jiri Prochazka's crazy in real life. Do you remember when he like locked himself in like a dark closet for like 3 days? I am coming. This fight is so bizarre. If this was like Jiri's third fight in the UFC, or if this was happening like right after the Alex Pereira, the first Alex Pereira fight, and this was, he was taking on Jamahal Hill instead of Rakic, I'd feel a lot more confident in Jiri's ability, but his game is the most light heavyweight game ever. But when it falls to pieces, it's gonna fall to pieces in the most light heavyweight way ever.
In a hurry, yeah.
I'm scared to look up his strike differential, so I won't. But it's probably not good. I'm not a huge stats guy because I'm more of the like judges don't get stats, so punch counts don't mean shit to me. Yeah, they matter, but how do you see this fight, man? I'm really, really torn, and I'm on the fence because I could just see it. I could see Jiri pushing Jamahal Hill on the back foot and just doing lots of weird stuff, but I could see Jamahal Hill really catching him with big shots and moments and really making him pay. I don't know, man. Like, please tell me I'm rambling.
Okay, so what I kind of tried to take a look at their past opposition. And you're 100% right. If we use MMA math, Jiri had a very close fight with Glover, and Jamahal delivered a shit kicking to Glover. But at the same time, Jamahal also delivered that shit kicking to Glover after Glover went to war with Jiri, and Glover was already in his 40s at that point.
And I think that was after the Jan Blachowicz freaking Magomedenko live bullshit where it ended in a draw, and Dana was like, "You guys are fighting in 2 weeks for the title. I don't give a fuck." Like he booked the fight like out of anger, and of course Glover is gonna say yes, and that like you'd be stupid to not say yes.
Yep, exactly. And the thing, it's hard to develop much from that because it's not like it's really easy to look back at records and be able to poke holes in it. For instance, Hill's got the win over Johnny Walker, but Johnny Walker is the living embodiment of the wacky waving inflatable tube man. And that fight proved it.
We're just making fun of how he got knocked out. Like he got knocked out of that fight, like he was doing the wave at a hockey game or some shit.
Exactly.
College football, whatever.
His next win was over Thiago Santos, and we all know how Thiago Santos has been ever since he came back from basically blowing out every limb against John Jones. He hasn't been the same. And then there was Glover. And like I said, he did a number on Glover, but I think Glover was done at that point. And then he
even like the
to
OSP fight, man. Like OSP was old and haggard at that time too, in my opinion.
Exactly. So I'm not sold on Jamahal, but I'm also not sold on Jiri, because
how could you be?
No, exactly. Like
I'm sold on him as far as like he's a fucking awesome fighter, and I'm gonna tune in every time he fights. But like, I'm not sold on the dude could literally go on he could literally lose his next 4 fights by violent knockout and get booted out of the UFC, or he could do the exact opposite and win all.
Like if by some crazy way he ends up getting a third fight with Pereira, I'd probably favor Pereira, but I'm not going to say, I guarantee you. I mean, Jiri there's nobody that is more likely to pull a crazy ass knockout out of their ass than Jiri is.
His not the last fight, but the time before out against Alexander Rakic is the prime example of it. And you could watch that fight, like you could watch it happen, and you're like, Jiri's getting teed off on, Rakic is going nuts. He's crushing him. He's crushing him. He's crushing him. He's dead. Like
so, yeah. So here's what I think I'll probably base this on, and it's it's impossible to say who wins this. Like don't take my prediction to the bank by any means, but who do I feel like is actually trying to learn from their losses? I mean, Jiri's going to be a crazy ass no matter what, but I think that he walked away from the first Alex fight. He kind of humbled himself, accepted the defeat. And I think he went back to work. And even though he didn't look great against Rakic, he was still able to get the job done and deliver a second round finish. So I know that he's got that in him. I think that the second loss was a little bit more devastating because it was more definitive, but I think he can do that. Jamahal, he's just been making excuses. Maybe he's just doing that to play heel. I don't know. But I don't like the fact he's been unable to accept the fact that he lost fair and square to Pereira. So based on that, I'm going to say that Jiri's probably going to be in the better headspace. So I'll pick Jiri. But again, I think Jamahal could very well be playing the pool too, just to keep his name out there. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I don't. We were kind of talking about this a little bit before we were recording. I have no idea whether Jamahal Hill is literally just full of shit and doing the Colby Covington, Chael Sonnen bit.
Henry
Cejudo, or if he's being serious. I actually, unfortunately, think I lean a little bit to this is really how he is. Like,
hey, he was talking about that. Oh yeah, I can hang on the ground with Paul Craig, and then he proceeds to get his arm broken, basically. So,
so I don't. Again, I have no idea. Either way, it's hilarious. It's a 3-round fight, and I actually don't know who that benefits. Because in a 5-round fight, I've seen Jiri Prochazka literally go to absolute war with Glover and be losing on the scorecards and still pull out a submission over like that. That win will probably be the best win on Jiri Prochazka's
most likely
record for life, potentially. But this could be another good one. I just don't. I feel like this fight is going to look really similar to his first fight, Jiri's first fight with Alex Pereira, minus the knockout. I just don't know how much, like, is Jamahal Hill a sharper or a more crafty puncher than Dominic Reyes? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Especially in that moment. Like Dominic, when he fought Dom, like that was only after Dom had lost to Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah.
Like, it was Jan and then Jiri. And those are, like, looking back at it, yeah, those two dudes are incredible. Of course they beat him, and then they both had a lot of moments. Dom had it. I think if Jiri gets on the front foot, really, really ups his volume, he could totally get caught and get flatlined. But his weird herky-jerky up and down, maybe he'll try to mix some grappling in. He's bigger than Jamahal. Another thing that to keep in mind is Jamahal Hill had that Achilles injury. He also had like another back injury because he was supposed to fight Khalil Roundtree, and he pulled out of that fight. So I don't know how healthy he is. I jokingly compared him to Paddy Pimblett with the shape, how he gets out of shape in between camps. I don't know what his health is like. I don't know what his shape is like. Yes, Jiri Prochazka has been knocked dead, and that does freaking matter. But I'm going to lean Jiri too. I just think Jiri, I have not seen Jamahal Hill be a crafty back foot counterpuncher. And I think Jiri Prochazka makes him fight a fight where that's the only option he has.
Yeah, dude. And beyond that, I worry that Jamahal might be looking past him at Alex, and that's not a smart thing to do.
Especially with Jiri.
Yeah.
I literally compare him. Do you know what a Beyblade is? Like the show.
Yeah.
He's like a Beyblade, dude. He's just like going freaking nuts and sparks flying everywhere, and he's nuts. Moving on to the co-main event of UFC 311, we have the champion Merab Dvalishvili. Sorry, anytime I say Merab Dvalishvili, I think about Chael Sonnen saying his name, and it's really funny. Taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. I'm gonna make it a point this week to listen to Chael Sonnen's breakdown of the co-main event and the main event, because the way he says Merab Dvalishvili, the way he says Umar Nurmagomedov, the way he says Arman Tsarukyan, and and then Islam Makhachev, like just the 4 names, it's gonna be a fucking. I hope Chael's on the desk this week, dude.
Chael's just he's got a unique voice anyway. Like you hear that voice and you immediately know it's Chael. So yeah.
Arman Tsarukyan it's so fucking funny. It's so funny. Let me give you the odds on this fight before I go off on a tangent. The odds on this fight. Umar Nurmagomedov is a big favorite, dude. He's minus 350. Merab is coming back at plus 260. That's fucking nuts.
Wow. That's stupid.
All 3 of these fights should just be pick 'em. Like that's why I'm talking about them. Like that's why we're talking about them, because they're the 3 best, closest, hardest to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the odds say otherwise. Vegas thinks Umar is that big of a favorite. Dude, break this down for me. Tell me who you think's gonna win. And tell me why Merab is being disrespected. Even if you don't
he's absolutely he's absolutely being disrespected. I imagine that it's probably got to be the bettors market that is showing the disrespect to Merab, because
it's the O in the last name, man.
100%. And so people are picking Nurmagomedov, and in order to kind of balance out the books, the bettors, the betting books keep moving it more and more in favor of Umar. And no, that's stupid. Hell, I'm not a gambling man. For one, I live in a state where it's illegal, so I kind of can't. But if I could, I'd probably throw some money down on Merab, just based on those odds. I mean, you want to make Umar a favorite, like a negative 130 favorite or something like that. I get that. That's understandable, but
fucking nuts.
3 to 1, that's ridiculous, dude. That's stupid.
Excuse my language. I just want to read something off to you real quickly. I'm just going to start here. John Dodson, Cody Stamen, Marlon Moraes, Jose Aldo, Petrion, Henry Cejudo, Sean O'Malley. And then I'm going to read you a couple more names. Brian Kelleher, Nathan Menes, Raoni Barcelos, Beksa Almakhan, and Corey Sandhagen. Yeah, like, and what is Merab? He's like 11-2 in the UFC. You could argue he should be 13-0. The difference of opponents that these guys have faced are night and day. Corey Sandhagen is a great fighter, and what Umar Nurmagomedov did to him was really incredible. But frick, man, those odds are absolutely nuts. I'm going to talk about the champ a little bit first. Merab's game. His game is an incredible game, especially for his age. Like, he's not the youngest dude. He's 34 years old. He's at bantamweight. But we all know it. His motor is just one that, in my opinion, his best performance and his most impressive fight in the UFC is his Petrion fight.
Yep.
I will, what the kids say, glazing now. I will glaze him for that fight. What he did to Petrion in that moment was like, and I'll bring this up every time I talk about a Merab fight, but after the fight was over, the fighters will come to the cage, shake their hands, the coaches talk. He went to shake Petrion's hand, and Petrion literally started down blocking and sprawling. The fight had been over for like 5 minutes, but he was hit with so much volume, and he had to defend and put up with so much volume and takedowns that he was just like he was like fucking shell shocked. Merab has very poor defense, and he's really susceptible to left hooks. Marlon Moraes almost killed him with one. Henry Cejudo almost killed him with one. But he's got great recoverability. And I think it's part of it is true cardiovascular, just incredible abilities. But I do think part of Merab's thing is just lunacy. Like, I do think he's
100%.
actually like a little bit crazy. And I think it's his mindset paired with his awesome physicality gives him the game that he has. You've seen the videos of him like climbing literally like 40-story buildings and like hanging out, climbing over balconies, climbing scaffolding, climbing to fight fans, diving headfirst into a fucking frozen lake that's only 10 inches deep. While he's on a run, and then he takes his shirt off and bandages his head up and jogs home wet and cold in the winter. Like the dude's incredible. Umar Nurmagomedov is comes from the longest. I mean, how long do you think that dude's been trained to be an MMA fighter? I saw a video of him with Abdul Manap when he was like 7 the other day. Like a little kid.
How old is he at this point? Yeah, and we all know that Abdul Manap had his son wrestling bears. So let's see. All right, so Umar's now 29, so 20 plus years, man.
He's been fighting for 28. He did not start off as a wrestler, like everyone thinks every Dagestani fighter does. He was a kickboxer, but learned to grapple. And I said this a little bit ago, but what he did to Corey Sandhagen with the boxing, like Corey Sandhagen was able to defend some takedowns and do better on the ground than most expected. But Umar's boxing, his hands and his technical prowess with the striking, like he fucking put Corey Sandhagen in a box. He was 3 times faster, beat him to every punch, was more clinical in the pocket, better in the pocket, and was really, really impressive. His kicking game is really, really good. And his wrestling game is good. We saw him get hurt by Beksat Almakhan. He got clubbed and dropped really bad and almost finished in that fight. And he was able to recover and, show that same recoverability and wrestling that Merab has shown us in those fights I mentioned as well. This is a really, really hard fight for me to pick. But I think the odds are really put that way just with the 18-0 record and the Nurmagomedov name. And Umar is also really, really good. I don't even know if I've let you talk. I'm sorry, because I'm into this fight.
You're good.
What do you think's gonna happen here? And obviously we discussed the odds. Who do you got in this fight? I think I already know who you have, but
we talked about it when we did our 2025 predictions. We talked about who we thought was going to be champion at the end of the year, and I said Umar will be because I think that the UFC wants Umar to be champion. I think they're doing everything. They're doing everything in their power to try to stack the odds against him, and I don't think Merab's in the right headspace. He, pretty much every other fight, he seemed to kind of be walking into it like, hey, this is going to be fun, Cejudo tried to get into his head that it didn't work, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it is with Umar and his team and all that fun stuff, but they seem to be in Merab's head. He does not seem to be the happy-go-lucky psychopath that he usually is.
I agree with that.
And so I kind of think, okay, when was the last time that Merab really kind of seemed rattled? And he did not have the right headspace the last time he lost, which was against Ricky Simone. It was a highly controversial fight. I understand where Merab was coming from but yeah, I think the UFC wants him to lose. I think that he's not in the right headspace. That doesn't mean that I'll be shocked if Merab wins. I've been saying that if I had money, I'd probably bet on Merab based on the odds. But I'm going to pick Umar But you know, like you said, you know, you've been going off on the fight just because it really is an incredible matchup. I'm I'm kind of surprised that they didn't try to save this for headlining a card, because I you know, the Nurmagomedov name has so much weight to it now that they could easily have him headlining the card with Merab, even if for whatever reason it's such a shame that casual fans don't get behind Merab, because like you said, he's a delightful
Oh my
psychopath.
God,
So
he's so awesome.
yeah,
If you know shit about MMA, if guys like me and you, like, you can't hate
yeah,
Merab. It's
yeah.
number one, his story is
Hmm.
awesome. Like, he's the true, like, you know, the American dream. Like, he's really that, like, dude from Georgia, construction worker, you know, came over here with nothing, came over here working construction on a working visa, met Aljo, got into had a
Yeah,
wrestling background, got into MMA, weirdly linked with Sarah Longo, and and now he's the world champion. Like, his story is freaking incredible, and I literally played speed chess through his story to get here. But there's a couple things that concern me for both of these guys. Is number one, this fight was kind of put together on a little bit short notice, um,
yes,
like 6 weeks, I believe. And I think both of these dudes were trying to get a fight in before Ramadan. I think, and when I say both of these dudes, I mean Islam and Umar.
Umar, absolutely.
And I think they also wanted to be on the same card together. I think that makes things a little easier for their team. I think that him and Islam can go into camp at the same time. They can have their head coach there, can run 2 training camps at the exact same time. I think it benefits them.
Agreed.
I think it benefits both of them being in the camp at the same time. Um,
Hmm.
One thing that I know is there's no way that Merab didn't help Aljo in his Movsar Evloev camp. So that fight just happened. There's no way Merab was not playing Movsar Evloev for
Hmm.
Aljo. You know what I mean? So that
Yep.
also gives me a little bit of hope for Merab. And Merab's not a guy that's out of shape, clearly,
Ever.
ever. I don't think he is going to be the dude that's like 70 doing calisthenics, like at a public park, doing like
Uh,
muscle ups and like all sorts of like weird.
he'll be the that generation's version of Jack LaLanne.
Sure, like doing one armed pull ups and all sorts of shit.
Yes.
At like 70, like that's going to be him. Um, his headspace, he was calling out everyone. He's calling out Petrion, calling out Figgy. He like it seemed like he didn't want this fight. He kind of was playing the same game that John Jones is playing with Tom Aspinall a little bit. It seemed like,
But Merab doesn't have that cachet.
yeah, and um, and it's obvious with both of these guys, with John and Merab, what they're trying to do, But
Yep.
supposedly, per Dana White, Merab marched into the apex and demanded this fight. So, um, I am really on the fence here. This should just be like a dead pick'em fight, because I could totally see Umar having the good footwork, having the abilities to try to keep this fight on the feet, being way cleaner in the pocket. He's so much faster in the pocket than Merab and so much sharper in the pocket. And, he could clip him the same way he clipped Raoni Barcelos and actually follow Merab to the ground and, hit him and club and sub him. He's got really dexterous kicks and incredible question mark kicks, and he could catch Merab slipping with a big kick. But what worries me with Merab too is he's a great wrestler, but I don't think he's as good of a grappler or wrestler as we all think he is. Like
He's
when I
relentless.
for Umar, when I might have said Merab, I meant Umar. I don't think
Oh,
Umar is as good of
okay.
a wrestler as we all think he is. Like, I go back and like I was like watching tape for this, and he I don't want to say he got stuck on the feet with Sandhagen, but like in moments he did. And I mean, look what Aljamain Sterling did to Corey Sandhagen. Yeah, Aljamain Sterling's the best bantamweight in the world, but like look who Merab's been able to out wrestle. Look at the Petrion fight. Go look at the Henry Cejudo fight. And I just think I think Merab is just going to go out here and try to actually put on a high pressure wrestling game and mix in the striking and force Umar on the back foot, force him to continuously chain wrestle. And I think he has the better cardio. I think he's the stronger guy. And I think he's more relentless. I think he's more relentless than any fighter on the whole entire UFC roster. I don't know of anyone that's more relentless than Merab Dvalishvili. The odds here are just ridiculous. But and
Terrible.
if you listen to our, the show we had a couple weeks ago, where we predicted champs, I predicted Merab and you predicted Umar. I can tell you one thing is, I do think that there's a Grand Canyon between these two guys and the people behind them in the division. I don't. Whoever wins this fight is going to be the bantamweight champion probably for a long fucking time. Because look at the wake Merab's left behind him. Umar beats him. I don't see anyone beating Umar. And if Merab can figure out how to beat Umar, I don't see who beats Merab. Give me Merab. I think Merab wins I think Merab wins the last half of the third round and the fourth and fifth round.
I think that's fair.
And you think Umar wins by decision?
No. I do not think it'll be a decision. I think that he'll catch Merab. I think club and sub sounds good because, like I said, he's not in the right headspace. And as much as we talk about Merab being a psychopath, he's also there to be hit. You talked about how Marlon Moraes almost got him.
He eats every left hook thrown at him because he doesn't move his head off the center line.
Yes, and Umar's a smart fighter, so I think that he can. I think he's going to be prepared to catch him rushing in. I'll say second round. It's got to be pretty early for Umar to do it, but yeah, because I do think Merab will break him down the deeper the fight goes.
It is hard to pick because you could see Umar winning a decision here, and you could also see him killing Merab, and Merab doesn't really finish people. Merab just doesn't have as many routes to victory, I don't think, but I think he does it by decision. Moving on to the main event of this card, we have Islam Makhachev taking on Arman Tsarukyan. Have you seen the odds for this fight?
No, but I'm guessing that they're probably stupid the way the other fight was.
Even stupider. I don't even think that's stupider. Even more stupid. Islam Makhachev is a minus 400 favorite. Arman Tsarukyan is coming back at plus 300. Dude, I'm not going to say this site. I'm looking at Islam at minus 440 and Arman Tsarukyan at plus 330 at one place.
It's ridiculous.
These are both again, all three of these fights are. Did they not watch the first fucking Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev fight? Did they not do that?
I know a lot of people will say that Islam has improved since that time, but so has Arman. And Arman was what, like 23, 24 at that fight? I can't even remember how old he was, but
dude, even if neither one of them have improved, then it's the exact same fight. The odds should
that's true.
What? How much do we think Islam has improved compared to Arman to make these odds be that?
No, it should not be that much. Like, Islam won that fight, and I agree he won that fight, but it was razor thin.
I love both of these guys, and I like Islam. Islam's an awesome fighter, but Islam shouldn't be a minus 400 against anyone in the top 5 at all. Lightweight's really good. Even if Max Holloway just got a random title fight coming off of a knockout back up at this division, I don't think he should be a minus 440 favorite over, I wonder what the odds would be if he was to fight Ilia Topuria. I guess we'll see after this fight because that may tell us something. This is a really interesting fight. Their first fight was so close, man. And both of these guys have gone on to do good things, and one of them have done great things since then. The Arman Tsarukyan fight was back on April 20th of 2019. the 420 special. Since the Arman Tsarukyan fight, Islam Makhachev has defeated Davi Hamosh, has triangle choked Drew Dober, rear naked choked Thiago Moises, ripped Dan Hooker's arm off, TKO'd Bobby Green, club and subbed Oliveira, unanimous decision over Volk, head kicked Volk, and then Bravo choked Dustin Poirier. That dude's been catching bodies. Arman Tsarukyan, since their last fight, he has taken on and defeated OAM, which that turned into a real good win. Like his first 2 fights in the UFC were Islam Makhachev and Olivier Aubin Mercier. Like,
yeah,
OAM
doesn't get the respect he deserves.
Dude, after he left the UFC, he went and won the PFL championship 2 years in a row.
Exactly. He doesn't get the respect he deserves.
At all, and then he defeated Davi Hamosh as well. He defeated Matt Favola, knocked out Christos Giagos, who's no longer in the UFC, knocked out Joel Alvarez in what, in my opinion, is his best performance, that Yoel Alvarez fight, where he took him down and just fucking elbowed his head off. The Gamrot fight, he lost to Gamrot, but that's a
controversial. That's a coin flip fight, dude.
And then he beat Demir Ismagulov. The Joaquim Silva fight, but he looked really, really good against Benil Dariush, and then he just had that splitty against Charles Oliveira. If he had to lose against Gamrot and got to have the win over Charles Oliveira, I think he'd choose it that way, because those were 2
100%.
really close fights. What's funny is Arman Tsarukyan, to me, is doing the tape study, and I know, and it could be a recency thing, but like his game is also can operate really similar to Umar's game.
Yeah.
Really dexterous kicking, good high kicks, good body kicks from Arman, really good in the pocket, good power with his hands. In the Joaquim Silva fight, he got clipped and hurt and almost finished in that fight. But really good finishing ability, really good ground and pound, really good takedowns, really good scramble ability. Islam, he's like, and I know this is like going to be a crazy statement, but he may be like the best MMA practitioner that's like ever been in the UFC. And when I say that, I mean like someone that is just completely well-rounded. Like he is as well-rounded, if not more, than someone like John Jones. He's got an incredibly well-rounded game. And I think we're at a point where we can put him, Islam should be sitting at the table with guys like John Jones. Like he's that fucking good. And if he gets win this weekend, should be sitting at the table with some of the greats. His ability to be defensively sound in the pocket, also be a really good counter puncher. He can fight on the front foot. He can fight on the back foot. He's got a really good check hook game. Like he crushed Oliveira with a check hook. People really think that the first Volkanovski fight was this like fight that should have gone to split. No, go watch the fight back. Islam won 4 rounds clean off of Volk. And there was some weird shit with his rehydration the time the fight happened, and then he went out there and iced him with a head kick. Islam is so fucking good. I'm going to give my pick after you give your pick, but I want you to tell me what you think is going to happen. Who do you have in this fight? And again, these odds, dude, what the fuck? Like,
okay. You were talking about Islam being one of the most well-rounded fighters, if not the most well-rounded fighter. And people have to remember that includes his former teammate and mentor, Khabib. He is definitely more well-rounded than Khabib. Whether or not he's a better fighter, I'm not going to say, because Khabib had the most brutal ground and pound game that we have ever seen, and just this outright meanness. I
actually don't think. I think Khabib beat Islam up a lot.
Probably.
I think Khabib beat up a lot of people in training.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean Islam, in their kickboxing rounds,
Islam's better.
Oh, totally.
Islam's much better. But yeah.
Tenfold. And their games they shouldn't even get comparisons because their games
they're going to though.
They're
so, very different.
They're so different. What does Islam do great, and what advantages does he have against Arman to you?
Islam, I think Islam is one of, if not the best defensive fighter that the UFC has seen. He's very particular about what
the numbers would
takes.
Prove that to be a fact.
Yeah.
He has the lowest striking, even after the Dustin Poirier fight, still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's very particular about what he does. That's probably been the thing that's been holding him back from breaking through more than anything, is just the fact that he does not get into all-out brawls.
He's responsible.
Yes, exactly. Because Khabib didn't avoid brawls. I mean, you remember him taking some shots from Michael Johnson. You remember him taking some shots from Conor. I mean, he was still able to stand there and take it, but you can only do that for so long before it costs you. So no, the thing with Islam is he makes very calculated risks, and 90% of the time it pays off in his favor. And whether or not I'm trying to figure, how does Arman beat him? Arman can beat him with power, because we do know that Arman has power in his hands. We saw what he did to Beneil Dariush, but at the same time, Benny's a little bit chinny, and he's a little bit more reckless than Islam. That's an understatement, if we're being honest.
Oh God.
Yeah. He can scramble with Islam, which is not easy. He might, I'm not saying this with confidence, he might be a better pure scrambler, but if you mix in MMA, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling, Makhachev's probably a little bit better there. I don't know if I can't say definitively, but
and that's kind of my whole thing. I understand, the odds are crazy. The odds are not right, but I do think it's kind of one of those, like, almost anything you can do, I can do better type of.
Mm-hmm.
I think Arman may have more power in the pocket. And I think he may have more, like, better elbows when it comes to ground and pound. Like, if both of them are in a ground and pound position to land elbows, I think Arman's a little more violent on top with his ground and pound. But I don't think he's number one. Like, that takedown that Islam hit on Dustin Poirier, to be able to chain that in from takedown to a submission to a finish, like, that deep into a fight. Like, I've never seen Arman do anything like that. Not saying that he can't do that. We haven't seen him do something like that. His fight with Dustin Poirier, if you are picking Arman Tsarukyan in this fight, you could look at the Dustin Poirier fight and say, well, Poirier had a lot of success with his boxing, and Poirier is 100% at the end of his career. He's older than he's ever been. He's slower than he's ever been, but it's fucking Dustin Poirier, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that fight, those middle rounds where Dustin Poirier, came back and won rounds off of Islam, like, dude, that's just Dustin Poirier. Like, that.
There's fighters who have earned the middle name of fucking. Jim fucking Miller, Matt fucking Brown, Dustin fucking Poirier.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he deserves. He deserves. It's Dustin Poirier. He's like one of the scrappiest people that's ever lived. I don't know if Arman can have that fight with Islam. And I don't know if Arman's as tough as someone like Dustin Poirier. Like, again, we saw him get buzzed by Joaquim Silva. We've also seen Islam get one shot knocked out by Adriano Moraes. And man, there was this clip going around that I saw a couple hours ago of Arman head kicking this dude like in the pocket. He like head kicked him like in the pocket. He's a shorter, stockier dude, and he like head kicked this dude from like a foot away. It was incredible, flattened him on the regional scene. It was this fight right before the UFC. their first fight was on short notice, and I think that was something that, almost favored Arman in a way because he didn't really have anything to lose. Islam was this highly touted dude, Habib's in the corner. Now both of these guys are very well coached, very well schooled. One of them, Arman Tsarukyan at American Top Team, Islam Makhachev, Eagles MMA, aka guy. They're both so well schooled. There's so much stuff that, again, I just think this is a fight where I don't see Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan is not Jiri Prochazka, where you can pick him to lose like 3/4 of the fight and then crush Islam with something. Could that happen? Totally, but like you can't. I don't think you can pick that. And I just like watching the first fight. There's a moment where like they're both in the clinch and they're both like in this like 50-50 exchange, and Islam just is like more tricky. Where like he need Arman to the body and then hit him with an uppercut to the body, and then the second Arman returns with the knee, that's when he manipulates his weight and then hits him with the Sambo trip, judo toss, and like trips him when he's up on one leg. Like Islam's game to me just seems like a little more tightly knit and a little more tricky. I think Arman might be like the better athlete of the two. Like I think he may have a little bit more explosive strength and a little bit more like flexibility and stuff like that. But I just don't know if I don't think Arman Tsarukyan is technically sound enough defensively to like have these consistent battles with Islam in the pocket. And I don't know if he can just out scramble him. I don't think he's as dangerous of a submission threat as Islam is. Islam has all sorts of submissions. Like, go watch that Dan Hooker fight. Like he fucking ripped his arm off with that Kimura. It's a really close fight though. Like it's so tit for tat. These are definitely the best two guys in the division. Arman is like 5 years younger than Islam too. So like this should not, even if he loses here and he's 0-2 against Islam, like this shouldn't deter him from, still having his eye on the prize in the future. But I'm picking Islam. I wouldn't be surprised if this looks like the second Volk fight, because Islam with rematches and close fights, his history with Volk, his two hardest fights were against Arman and Volk, and he rematched Volk and fucking killed him. I just think he's going to be really well prepared for this. I'm picking Islam to win by a decision.
I can't disagree with anything you said. But I'll actually be ballsy. I'm going to pick Arman. A couple of reasons. We talked about their first fight. That was so long ago that it almost doesn't matter. Both of them have improved a ton. But there's a couple of things there that are really standing out. Number one, Islam's been very dismissive of Arman. He's like, I've already beat him once. Why do I need to fight him again? Almost taking the same approach that, like, say, Kamaru Usman took with Leon Edwards. I beat him once, but it was so damn long ago that I think both of them are completely different fighters. And second of all, Arman kind of gives me a John Jones vibe in the sense that he can kind of be taken out of his performance because it's an opponent that doesn't really excite him. Like the Joaquin Silva fight. Arman didn't look that great, but I think it's also because it's like, oh, damn it, nobody will fight me. Okay, I guess I can fight this guy. And he just kind of took the fight, went through the motions, got the win. Because I don't think there's anybody that would disagree with the fact that Arman did not look great that fight. But against Beneil Dariush, holy crap, he looked fucking awesome. Against Charles Oliveira, he came out angry. I mean, good hell, he had the altercation with the fan during his walkout. He
you don't show me, fuck you. That's what he said. Maybe from 300 meters away. Yeah. Don't show me, fuck you. Not to my face. I'm from Russia. That shit's funny, dude.
Oh, dude, that's
Did he ever
classic,
do his
man.
punishment? Like
it was a 9-month suspension. So just barely over the hump for this.
What a high school ass punishment. where it was like, you need to write an essay apology or you're suspended for 9 months. Like,
Basically.
Yeah, he was like, fuck you, I'm not apologizing. I'll take the suspension, and gets a title fight. Like, he punched a fan. His last fight, the last punch he threw was at a fan, and now he's about to throw a punch at Islam.
Yeah, no, but like I said, I think that he's motivated because, like, even against Gamrot, you know, everybody was talking about how great of a fight it was going to be. There was nobody saying that, Gamrot's going to kick his ass or anything like that. I think Tsarukyan feeds off of people doubting him. You know, that's the indication that I've kind of been getting because, you know, most people were picking Oliveira to beat him at UFC 300. You know, I'll admit I was one of them that was. Not like I'm a big name or anything in the MMA community, but the more that I watch him, the more I think he feeds off of people doubting him. And I think that this is, you know how you sometimes just get that gut feeling that an upset's coming. I kind of had this feeling. This was years back, but I kind of had this feeling with regards to Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Verdum.
Sure.
Had the same feeling with regards to it wasn't really an upset, but I had the same feeling that Topuria was going to beat Volkanovski. You know, just it felt like a moment of destiny. It kind of feels like that for Tsarukyan. I'm not going to say that, you know, I haven't had this feeling and been proven wrong, but more often the feeling's been right for me. So I'm going to say Tsarukyan. But, you know, we've already talked about the other two fights. These feel very much like coin flip fights. So,
yeah, because this could literally just be a fight that's this could, and we talked about it. This could literally look just like Movsar Evloev and Aljamain Sterling for 5 rounds, where you're just like, these scorecards are all over the fucking place. We don't know who won what. You know, Islam landed a head kick, but Arman, you know, controlled some of that round, and then Islam controlled this 3rd round. Like, it could just be, the scorecards could be all over the place for this. How do you think Arman does it?
Go. I'll say that it's he clips him in the 3rd round. Finishes him off with some ground and pound. And one other thing that I think is kind of an X factor, I could apply this to the Umar fight, but I think that Merab's the bigger head case in that one. I don't know how much the whole airplane incident with Khabib is going to affect him and his team. You know, that's a hell of a distraction because you
fucking wildfires. We got distractions in Cali, man. Seriously,
Islam's gonna be asked about what he thinks about what happened with the plane. Umar's gonna be asked what he thinks about the plane. You know, all that fun stuff. So I think that there's potential for them to be distracted by that. So I'm this one's my going out on a limb, and I'm picking Arman.
Hey, that's what we're here to do. Picking right or wrong doesn't cost us, win us, or lose us any money.
Nope.
Here on Check the Kick. That's what's great about it. Man, really, really good card. Really, really good card this weekend.
Fantastic
and then we got
card.
And then we got a week off. And then where are we at? We're at the Izzy and Imavov coming up the following week, wherever that one's at. Is that in Paris? I don't know where the hell that's at.
I think there's an Apex card in between there.
Let me look. Now I gotta look at the end of the show. We're gonna drag this on just a little bit more, guys, to tell you that it is UFC 311 on January 18th, and then right after that,
Riyadh.
Yep. I don't know why I said Paris. It's in Riyadh, and we have Adesanya taking on Imavov, and that's on February 1st.
Okay, dude, whoops, I was wrong.
Thank you so much for joining me, man. It's always fun talking about fights. I really appreciate you coming on. Any final words?
You'd be nuts to miss these fights, man. That's all that I can say. This is going to be one of the best cards of the year, if not the best.
This could be the UFC 300 of 2025. That's the show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the fights.